The Institute for Economic Justice says South Africa urgently needs a more realistic emergency rescue package. It's come up with a proposal for government. The Institute believes a minimum of 310 billion rand is required and has identified priority sectors and funding sources. Its co-director, Neil Coleman, speaks to us now via Skype from Cape Town. Mr. Coleman, thank you very much for your time. I want to start off with an article that's written by The Times Live. It came out at 9 last night, and the headline reads, Ramaphosa tells ANC that South Africa needs 1 trillion rand for COVID relief. Do you think that is what is likely to be announced by Cabinet?
Thanks very much. I think it's probably unlikely that we're going to see a package of 1 trillion rand. That would be about 20% of our GDP. It wouldn't be completely out of line with what some countries have implemented, such as the UK, but it would be very high by international standards. Just by comparison, Toyle, we just need to understand that the current package that we have in South Africa is between 40 and 50 billion rand, which is about 0.1% of GDP. So 1 trillion would be a massive increase. Perhaps, you know, if we're talking about a medium-term package over the next couple of years, a package of that magnitude would make sense. But in terms of the immediate emergency package that the Institute for Economic Justice is talking about, we're saying that a package of about 300 to 400 billion would be necessary to get the economy moving, because our economy has been put into ICU currently. And we need to get the economy moving, because jobs, businesses, you know, et cetera, are bleeding on a massive scale.
That's right, Neil, and indeed what I want to talk about are your proposals as the Institute for Economic Justice. This amount of about 300 to 400 billion, where will it come from? Because that's the central question.
You know, Kole, I think when people look at the question of mobilizing resources, we tend to think a little bit too narrowly about the fiscus. In other words, just about taxation, which is, you know, traditionally where people look for mobilizing resources. But certainly in a crisis like this, and even more generally, there are many other sources which can be mobilized, both domestic and international resources. Domestically, we have a variety of avenues to do that through, development finance institutions, through the pension funds, both public and private, you know, the bond market, the Reserve Bank itself can mobilize resources, and of course the fiscus, the government, both through reprioritizing resources and changing the tax system. So what we propose is a mix of mobilization of all those resources. And people often ask, well, you know, what will happen if you borrow on a large scale? What will it do to the country in the future? The real question that we should be asking is what's going to happen if we don't mobilize those resources, if businesses close down, if millions lose jobs, if the economy grinds to a halt. What will happen is that the tax system will collapse. The economy itself will shrink massively. So this is like emergency relief, which helps to pump resources into the economy, into our patient, in order to get it moving again.
That patient, Neil Coleman, will likely have the announcement come through any time, I suspect, between today and maybe some time in the week. The other key important area is, where are the sectors that this money ought to be spent in?
Well, I think, it's really an economy-wide intervention. So, you know, businesses across the board, particularly those businesses who are not regarded as essential services, but businesses more generally, are suffering massively. And when that happens, and when the businesses close down, obviously people lose their income, and poor households become not only, half of the population is currently living in poverty. They get pushed into destitution, and people actually start not having enough food to live on.
And that's where I want to come in and interrupt you there, Neil, because just before this hour, we spoke to the BBC's Sandy Lezungu, the Black Business Council, and he says that the 500 million rand that has been put aside for the small to medium enterprises is simply not enough. In fact, if I were to quote him directly, I think he used the word, it'll have to be multiplied 5 times that amount for small businesses to be propped up. Your view? What has this sector, or has this sector benefited at all from the meager amount, if I were to use the word, of 500 million rand that's been set aside for this sector?
Look, I mean, there's some rescue measures which government has put in place, which obviously benefit, businesses up to a point. But it is, as he says, on far too small a scale to make the necessary difference. And that's why in the IEJ proposal, we talk about a massive ramping up of these support packages. And quite rightly, people are focusing on SMEs. But we've got to look at businesses across the board, including large businesses. And business own analysis of the economic situation, if you look at their documents, also shows that in the sort of short to medium term, large businesses are also going to be affected. And if we look at the situation that has happened in the retail sector with a massive company on the verge of going into liquidation, I think we understand that this is not only about small businesses, it's about the economy as a whole. Certain sectors, as you indicate, are very, very badly hit, and so there need to be both targeted relief measures as well as general relief measures that businesses can claim. In some instances, it's via direct grants and assistance from government, and government should begin to take stakes, equity in some of the particularly large businesses, so that taxpayers' money is not just simply pumped in without any return. But secondly, there can be forms of loans and tax deferrals which are paid back in time once businesses recover.
Neil, very briefly for me, I am out of time, but I've got to put this question to you. The critical issue right now is the workers at SAA. 4,700 of them have been issued with retrenchment letters. What should happen with that airline, perhaps even SA Express to a great extent?
This is a huge problem, Koli, and it's not only about the workers at SAA, it's about the entire tourism and aviation sector under the current crisis. So I think there needs to be a rescue package which deals both with workers in the aviation sector as well as tourism more generally. And so part of the overarching government relief package needs to look at how we're going to address those crisis-ridden sectors. And that is something that we hope government will announce coming out of the cabinet meeting today.
Neil Coleman, thank you very much for your time. He's with the Institute of Economic Justice.